I and my husband have been married for 12 years and we have 2 kids. I don't even know where to begin. Things have gotten weird since I got really sick last week, and I'm starting to see my marriage differently. For some background, I work part-time as a nurse while also handling most of the childcare and household stuff. I've always had issues with respiratory infections. They hit me hard because of my mild asthma. My husband has known this our entire relationship. It's not new information. Last week, I developed bronchitis that got bad really fast. My fever climbed to 104.5 degrees despite taking meds, and I was shivering constantly, dizzy, and struggling to breathe properly. Anyone who's had a high fever knows how it messes with your head too. When I realized how sick I was getting, I asked Dave if he could please take just one day off work to help with the kids and possibly take me to the doctor if things got worse. He has 3 weeks of unused sick leave, but he immediately shut me down. We'll only go to the hospital if your fever hits 105, he told me, then just left for work. No call to check on me all day. Nothing. I somehow made it through that first day, though I honestly don't remember parts of it. I was so weak I could barely stand, but still had to get the kids breakfast, help with homework when they got home, and try to keep up with basic stuff around the house. At one point, I nearly passed out trying to get medicine from the bathroom cabinet. My 9-year-old found me lying on the bathroom floor. He helped me back to bed, brought me water and medicine, and even made sandwiches for dinner for himself and his brother. That part still makes me tear up as I'm typing this. When Dave finally came home that evening, he barely acknowledged how sick I was. He literally just asked if my fever had hit 105 yet. The kids told him I'd been really sick all day, but he just shrugged and said, "She'll be fine," before settling in to watch TV. He ordered takeout for himself, but didn't think to get anything for me. I hadn't eaten all day because I felt too nauseous, but the thought didn't even cross his mind to check if I needed food. This went on for 3 days. Me struggling alone with 2 kids while having a fever that could have landed me in the hospital. The house descended into complete chaos. Dave didn't lift a finger to help with any household tasks while I was sick. Edit. Forgot to mention that during these 3 days, he slept in the guest room because he didn't want to catch whatever I had and complained about having to make his own breakfast. Meanwhile, our 9-year-old was checking my temperature and bringing me soup. By the 4th day, my fever finally broke and I started to recover, though I still felt very weak. I was lying in bed that evening, still weak and coughing, when Dave walked in and immediately tried to initiate sex. When I explained that I was still too sick, he got visibly irritated. "It's been days," he complained. He actually suggested I was using being sick as an excuse before walking out frustrated. I just laid there in the dark. After 12 years of marriage, my well-being has never been a priority to Dave. Not once. I've always been the one to take care of everyone. But when I needed someone to take care of me for just a few days, he couldn't be bothered. Looking back, there were so many red flags I ignored. When I had outpatient surgery 3 years ago, he went golfing the next day. When my dad died, he complained about having to take time off for the funeral. I've spent years making excuses for him, telling myself he's just clueless rather than actually uncaring. I called my sister yesterday and just broke down telling her everything. She wasn't surprised at all, which says something pretty sad about how obvious Dave's behavior has been to everyone but me. She reminded me of all the times he's put himself first over the years, and it was like she was holding up a mirror to a marriage I didn't recognize anymore. The thing is, I'm a nurse. I know exactly how dangerous a 104.5-degree fever with respiratory distress can be, especially with my history. If my condition had deteriorated further, I could have ended up hospitalized or worse. And Dave knew this too. I've explained my health issues to him countless times over our marriage. I've barely spoken to Dave since that night. He seems confused by my distance, like he genuinely doesn't understand what he did wrong. Yesterday, he asked why I was still upset about being sick, since I'm better now anyway. As if the problem was the illness itself and not his complete indifference to my suffering, I keep replaying that moment of finding my 9-year-old making dinner for his brother while I could barely stand. That's not how it should be. My child shouldn't be more capable of compassion and care than my husband. I feel like I'm going crazy. Is this level of neglect normal in a marriage, or am I missing something? I've always been the make-it-work type, but for the first time in 12 years, I'm seriously thinking about what separation might look like. Thanks for reading all this. It helps just to get it out somewhere. Now for the first update. Update. Wow, I wasn't expecting my post about my husband's reaction to my illness to blow up like that. Rip my inbox, seriously. I've read every single comment and wanted to update you all on what's happened since then. It's been about a week since my original post, and physically, I'm doing much better, though I still have this annoying, lingering cough that won't quit, typical for me after bronchitis. Emotionally, though, first, thank you to everyone who validated that no, I wasn't being dramatic or overreacting. So many of you shared similar experiences that genuinely made me feel less alone, though it's heartbreaking how common this kind of neglect seems to be. To those who suggested I might be leaving out his side of the story, trust me, I've spent 12 years making excuses for this man, and I'm done minimizing what happened. The house remained the same for days after I started feeling better. Dave never once offered to help clean up, even though I was. When I finally started tackling the mess, he actually had the nerve to say, "Finally getting back to normal, huh?" The result of me nearly collapsing from a dangerous fever. After reading all your comments and discussing everything with my sister for hours, I realized I needed to have a serious conversation with Dave about what happened. Many of you pointed out that this was probably part of a pattern rather than a one-time event, and you were absolutely right. Why did it take strangers on the internet to make me see what was right in front of me? So Saturday morning, I sat Dave down. I calmly explained how abandoned and scared I felt during my illness, especially given how serious my condition was. I told him how hurtful it was that he wouldn't take a single day off to help me despite having 3 weeks of sick leave available. His response? I have real responsibilities at work that can't just be put on hold because you have a little cold. A little cold. My fever was 104.5. I reminded him that with my asthma and respiratory issues, this kind of infection can be dangerous. "You're always so dramatic about this stuff," he said. "You're fine now, aren't you? So what's the problem?" When I brought up how he went golfing the day after my surgery 3 years ago, he claimed he didn't even remember that. And yes, to those who asked in comments, there have been many other incidents like this over the years. Too many to count. Dave stood up abruptly, accusing me of keeping score and bringing up ancient history when we should be moving forward. I stayed calm, surprising even myself, and explained that as a nurse, I know exactly how dangerous my recent illness was. His response? "You're a part-time nurse, not a doctor, so don't act like you know everything." This from the man who has exactly 0 medical training, but was somehow qualified to determine that only a 105-degree fever warranted medical attention. The dismissal of my literal professional expertise was the final straw. Dave stormed out of the house after that, saying he needed space from all this negativity. He didn't come back until almost midnight. For those asking about potential affairs in the comments, honestly, I don't know. At this point, it wouldn't surprise me, but I have no concrete evidence. That's not even my biggest concern right now. While he was gone, I did a lot of thinking about our marriage. I realized that Dave has been consistently diminishing my concerns, expertise, and needs for our entire relationship. I've spent years accommodating him, making excuses for him, and prioritizing his comfort while he's given virtually nothing in return. What really hit me was when our 9-year-old asked if I was okay after Dave left. "Dad seemed really mad," he said, "but you were really sick, Mom. I was scared." The fact that my child understood the seriousness of the situation, while my husband dismissed it. As many of you pointed out in the comments, children notice everything. My son's concern for me while I was sick versus Dave's indifference has clearly impacted how he sees his father. That breaks my heart, but it's not my fault. It's Dave's. I've spent the past few days quietly observing Dave's behavior, the way he expects dinner to be ready when he gets home, but never asks if I need anything after my nursing shifts. How he'll complain about a minor headache for days, but expected me to function with a dangerously high fever. The constant little comments undermining my contributions to our family. Yesterday, I called a lawyer. I'm not necessarily filing for divorce yet, but as many of you suggested, I wanted to understand my options. I also reached out to a therapist for myself because I need to understand how I allowed this situation to continue for so long. Dave has noticed my distance and keeps asking what's still wrong. When I don't immediately reassure him that everything's fine, he gets frustrated and says I'm punishing him. Edit for additional context. Several people asked about financial considerations. I work part-time as a nurse, so I do have my own income, though it's significantly less than Dave's. We have a joint account for household expenses and separate personal accounts. I've always been careful with money and have some savings of my own that Dave doesn't know about. Not a lot, but enough for an emergency if needed. I've decided to set some firm boundaries for now. I'm no longer doing Dave's laundry or making special meals for him. I'm not greeting him with a smile and pretending everything is fine when it isn't. I'm not carrying the entire emotional and domestic burden of this family while he contributes nothing but a paycheck. His response to these boundaries has been telling. Rather than stepping up, he's been complaining more, acting confused about why the house isn't running as smoothly, and making passive-aggressive comments about how things have changed. Yes, Dave, they have. I've changed. I'm no longer accepting basic human decency. I've given myself a timeline of 1 month. If Dave doesn't agree to marriage counseling and show real, tangible changes in his behavior by then, I'll be moving forward with a trial separation. Several commenters suggested this approach rather than immediately filing for divorce, and it feels right to me. The hardest part is looking at my kids and wondering how this will affect them. But then I remember my son making sandwiches for dinner while I was feverish, and I realized that staying in this marriage as it is would teach them all the wrong lessons about relationships and self-worth. I want them to know that love includes care, compassion, and showing up when things get hard. Dave has taught them the opposite, and I can't let that be their model for the future. I'm scared about what comes next, but I also feel a strange sense of clarity. Whether this marriage survives or not, I know I deserve better than what I've been accepting. Thank you all for helping me see that. I'll update again once I've had the conversation with Dave about counseling and my boundaries. Not sure what to expect, but having this community to share with has been more helpful than I can express. Now for the second update. Update 2. My marriage to Dave continues, so here's what's happened since my last post. First, thank you all for the overwhelming support. Your comments truly kept me sane when I was doubting myself. It's been 2 weeks since my last update, and I've been carefully documenting Dave's behavior to make sure I'm not overreacting or being dramatic, as he likes to say. I started a simple notes app list of every instance where he puts himself first or dismisses my needs. Wow. Once I actually paid attention, the list grew depressingly fast. I've been implementing those boundaries many of you suggested. Nothing dramatic, just basic self-respect stuff like not doing his laundry anymore or making special meals for him while I'm still recovering and juggling work and the kids. The reaction has been illuminating, to say the least. Dave noticed immediately, but instead of taking responsibility, he's been increasingly hostile. The passive-aggressive comments started small. Guess I'll just wear wrinkled shirts to work now, but escalated to complaints about how I've changed and am punishing him for trivial matters. I kept my cool and simply replied that I'm prioritizing my health while recovering, exactly what he did during my illness. Then came the unexpected call from his mother. I should have seen this coming. Dave always runs to his mother when things don't go his way. She spent 20 minutes lecturing me about a wife's duties and how marriage is about sacrifice. Funny how that sacrifice only seems to go one direction in her mind. The main point came when she said, "Everyone gets a cold sometimes, dear. You can't expect special treatment for a slight sniffle." A slight sniffle. This woman knows about my respiratory issues. She's seen me hospitalized before. That's when it clicked. Dave had completely misrepresented how sick I was. When I pressed his mother for details, I discovered Dave has been misrepresenting our entire marriage for years. According to his version, he handles most household responsibilities because of my fragile health, and I'm apparently unable to function. The audacity of this man. After ending that call, I confronted Dave. I was calm. That nurse training comes in handy for keeping your cool when you want to scream. I laid out everything his mother had said and asked him directly why he lied about my illness and our household responsibilities. His response shocked me. Dave actually admitted he finds it embarrassing to acknowledge how much I do for our family. Apparently, his coworkers all talk about their wives handling everything at home, and he didn't want to seem like less of a man for having a wife with a career who expects partnership. Then came the workplace excuse. Dave revealed his promotion last year came with expectations of long hours and total commitment. He's been afraid of appearing weak or uncommitted if he takes time off for family matters. I pointed out that many of his colleagues, including his female boss, regularly use sick leave for family care. He dismissed this as different without explaining how. Anyone want to guess why it's different when women do it? When I pressed further about why he couldn't take one day during my serious illness, especially with 3 weeks of unused sick leave, Dave became angry. He actually raised his voice, saying, "I don't understand the pressure he's under, and my constant demands make it impossible for him to focus on work." All this for asking for basic human care while seriously ill. The worst part? Our 9-year-old overheard this whole argument and came into the room with tears on his face. Looking directly at his father, he said, "Mom could have died and you didn't even care." Dave stood there speechless for a moment. Instead of addressing our child's valid concern, Dave grabbed his keys and left. Hours later, I got a text saying he was staying at a hotel because he needs time to think. Fine by me. The atmosphere in the house immediately improved with him gone. During the 3 days Dave was away, I decided to organize our financial documents. Several of you had suggested getting paperwork in order just in case. That's when I discovered several concerning financial decisions he's made without my knowledge. An expensive golf club membership that costs more than our monthly grocery budget. Credit card debt I had no idea existed. And on top of that, he dipped into our kids' college funds for a temporary loan that was never repaid. For those who asked about finances in my last post, this changes things considerably. I'm now very glad I kept my own separate savings account he doesn't know about. My sister came to stay with me and the kids while Dave was gone. She's been my sister through all this. She helped me sort through my emotions and options, including calling a lawyer to discuss what separation might look like. The lawyer was extremely helpful and helped me understand what documentation I should be gathering. Edit 3:15 p.m. Just took a break to read some of your comments. Rip my inbox. So many of you are sharing similar stories about partners who only show remorse when faced with consequences, not when they've hurt you. It's validating, but also heartbreaking how common this pattern is. After 3 days of peaceful existence without Dave, he showed up unannounced with a bouquet of grocery store flowers, not even my favorite kind. He grabbed whatever was at the checkout, and an apology for overreacting. Not a word about dismissing my illness, lying to his mother, hiding financial decisions, or frightening our child. Just sorry for overreacting as if he was the wronged party. I stayed calm and told him flowers cannot fix our fundamental problems. I explained I'm considering a formal separation until we can work through these issues with professional help. His face changed instantly. The contrite expression vanished, replaced with anger as he accused me of planning this all along and using one incident to end our entire marriage. One little incident. I nearly collapsed with a 104.5 fever while caring for our children alone, discovered years of lies to his family about our relationship dynamics, found hidden financial issues, and watched our child break down in tears over his father's indifference to my health. But sure, one little incident. Dave left again, slamming the door and knocking a family photo off the wall. The glass shattered, just as any illusions I still had about our marriage. My sister helped me clean up the broken glass while the kids were upstairs. She turned to me and said, "You know you deserve better than this, right?" It wasn't a question, and for the first time, I truly believed it. I've spoken with the lawyer again and started paperwork for a legal separation. I'm not rushing to divorce yet, but I need formal protection considering the financial discoveries. The kids know we're having grown-up problems, but I've been careful not to badmouth their father. They're perceptive, though. My son asked if this was because Dad doesn't help when we need him, as my son said. Dave has been texting demanding to know my endgame and saying I'm destroying our family over nothing. His mother called again to tell me how disappointed she is in my selfish behavior and how marriage takes work. I didn't bother explaining that I've been the only one working at this marriage for 12 years. I've scheduled my first therapy appointment for next week. Several of you recommended focusing on my own healing, regardless of what happens with the marriage. And you were absolutely right. I need to understand how I allowed this dynamic to continue for so long. As for what's next, I honestly don't know. Dave has agreed to marriage counseling, though he made it clear he's only doing it to prove I'm overreacting. The therapist I contacted said they won't work with us if one party isn't genuinely interested in change, so we'll see how that initial consultation goes. Thank you all for helping me see things clearly. Sometimes it takes thousands of internet strangers to make you realize what those closest to you have been trying to tell you for years. I'll update again after the counseling session, but right now I'm focused on creating stability for my kids and taking care of myself for once. The next steps are terrifying, but I'm stronger now than I've been in years. Now for the final update. Final update. My life after legal separation from Dave. First of all, thank you all for the incredible support through this journey. Your comments helped me find strength I didn't know I had. It's been exactly a month since my last update, and wow, what a difference those 30 days have made. The kids and I have been staying at my sister's place while I sort out next steps. I've been slowly gathering important documents and organizing my separate finances. The first week after Dave stormed out was surprisingly peaceful. No passive-aggressive comments about laundry, no eye-rolling when I mentioned being tired, no dishes magically appearing in the sink minutes after I'd cleaned everything. Just me and the kids establishing our own little routine without walking on eggshells. Then came the discovery that blew everything wide open. Remember how Dave claimed he couldn't take a single day off work during my serious illness because of workplace expectations and his fear of appearing weak or uncommitted? Well, turns out that was complete BS. My coworker Jen from the hospital mentioned seeing Dave at Green Valley Golf Club when I was sick. At first, I thought she must be mistaken. There's no way he'd do that, right? But then I remembered Dave's work has an online calendar system where you can see who's out of office. So I checked, and there it was in black and white. Dave had actually taken 2 sick days during the week I was desperately ill with a 104.5 fever. Not to help his struggling wife and children, not to handle household responsibilities, but to play golf with his buddies. I sat with this information for a few days, organizing my thoughts and consulting. Then I texted Dave asking to meet at a neutral location. He agreed, probably thinking this was going to be a reconciliation conversation. I arrived at the coffee shop first and picked a table in the corner for privacy. When Dave walked in, he had this weird mix of anger and worry on his face. I could tell the separation was finally making him realize this wasn't just a temporary tantrum that would blow over. He sat down and immediately launched into a monologue about how difficult the past month had been for him. He complained about having to do his own laundry, cook his own meals, and how unfair it was that I'd abandoned him with no warning. I just sat there quietly, letting him talk himself into a corner. When he finally stopped talking, I calmly placed my phone on the table and showed him the screenshots of his work calendar. You took sick days while I was ill, Dave, but instead of helping me when I could barely stand, you went golfing. The look on his face was something I'll never forget. First, complete denial. That's not true. Then deflection. I needed to clear my head because your illness was stressing me out, followed by minimization. It was just a few hours, not the whole day. I just nodded and said, I understand now where I stand in your list of priorities, and it's given me clarity about what needs to happen next. That's when I took off my wedding ring and placed it on the table between us. Not dramatically or for effect, just calmly and with finality. The symbol of 12 years of putting someone else first who never really saw me. Dave's entire demeanor changed instantly. It was evident that he was realizing his actions have actual consequences for the first time in his adult life. Suddenly, he was all apologies and promises. Of course, now he was willing to go to counseling. Of course, now he understood how important this is to me. Of course, now he could see why I was upset. I explained that I shouldn't have needed to reach this breaking point for him to take my health and well-being seriously. It shouldn't have required separation and the threat of divorce for him to consider my needs as valid and important. His response was to stare at his hands for nearly a full minute. And for once, he didn't immediately deflect or argue. I told him I'd already consulted with a lawyer. The document outlined specific conditions. He would need to actively participate in both individual and family therapy, demonstrate consistent involvement with the children, including taking them to appointments and activities without being asked, complete a financial management course, and agree to full transparency about all accounts and spending. He read through the document slowly. When he finished, he signed it but couldn't resist adding, "You'll regret breaking up our family like this. The kids need both parents." I agree, I told him. They do need both parents, but they need parents who model respect and care for each other. Right now, we're not giving them that. The barrage started before I even got back to my sister's place. text messages from Dave's friends asking me to give him another chance and suggesting I was throwing away marriage vows over one mistake. His mother called 3 times, leaving increasingly hostile voicemails about how I was destroying her son's life, and no marriage is perfect. What these people don't understand is that this wasn't about one incident. This was about a pattern of behavior that had been normalized for so long that I couldn't even see how unhealthy it was until I almost collapsed with a dangerous fever while still being expected to care for everyone else. The past month hasn't been easy. There have been moments of doubt and grief, moments when I've questioned if I'm doing the right thing or if I should just go back to the familiar pattern for the sake of keeping the peace. But those moments are becoming less frequent. I've started therapy on my own, and it's helping me understand how I ended up accepting so little for so long. The kids are adjusting to the new arrangement, and honestly, seem less anxious overall. My 9-year-old asked last night if Dad and I would get back together, and I gave an honest answer that I didn't know, but that whatever happened, both of us would always love them. As for what comes next, I'm taking it one day at a time. I've returned to work full-time at the hospital. Dave has attended 2 therapy sessions so far, according to our agreement, though I don't know how engaged he actually is in the process. For now, I'm focusing on rebuilding my sense of self-worth and creating a stable environment for the kids. Whether that eventually includes Dave depends entirely on his willingness to do the hard work of genuine change, not just temporary behavior modification to win me back. Edit. Thank you all for the awards and supportive comments. Several people have asked for more details about the financial situation. Yes, I've protected my separate accounts and documented everything. The lawyer helped me freeze the joint accounts to prevent any retaliation spending. Also, update on the kids. They had their first therapy session yesterday, and the therapist says they're processing things in a healthy way. Apparently, my 9-year-old told the therapist, "Mom smiles more now." That broke me in the best possible way. This community has been an incredible support system during the hardest weeks of my adult life. I'll check back in once the 3-month separation period ends, but for now, I'm focused on healing and moving forward one step at a time.